Mt Moon. As an 8-year-old playing Pokemon for the very first time, I cannot tell you how long I was stuck trying to navigate this place. Once I eventually learned how to get out, I returned and spent countless more minutes searching for the elusive Clefairy. So let's take that Clefairy and the other Mt Moon only Pokemon and try to beat Fire Red. Since you can't get any Moon Pokemon before the first gym, I cheat to make Clefairy a new starter. She was almost won anyway, so it's not a big deal. He's also the most iconic Mt Moon Pokemon. With Stab Pound, he makes short work of my rival until we meet him again like 5 minutes later. I did cheat to give him Metronome early because that's like his signature move and the only chance I have to beat Brock without overleveling like crazy. For Blue though, I don't need it at all. Let's see how lucky I can get with Metronome battling this random gym trainer. The way I see it, any damaging grass or water move should be enough to take out this rock ground Pokemon. Even Ice would probably be okay. This dude's Geode quickly falls to a Water Octazooka, not a move I expected, but it works for me, and Sandshrew takes quite a bit longer. Eventually Future Sight and Bind do defeat it, so that's a good enough omen, right? To make this more likely to work, I do Encore Geodude's Defense Curl and quickly get a Muddy Water. Now that's what I'm talking about. All I need is something like that against Onix. I end up getting Ember, Gust, Psybeam, Calm Mind, basically a whole variety of less than useful moves. 8 Metronomes later, the Rock Snake still stands. Well, metaphorically. Onix does get down to the red, but I wasn't lucky enough the first time, and I lose. That's no matter, let's just try again. This time, Clefairy wastes all of his Metronomes on Geodude, getting absolutely nothing useful. He eventually pounds it to death, but with only 4 HP, Onix clearly wins again. On the third attempt, the first Metronome is a Psybeam, which confuses Geodude, allowing me to save the rest of my Metronomes for Onix. Onix is also hit with a Psybeam, what are the chances of that? Avoids Fissure, unfortunately, but is then Outraged, which is a special attack, so that worked out perfectly. 3 attempts isn't too bad, considering it was purely based on luck. I expected quite a bit worse. I get to Mt Moon, but before catching anything new, I have a battle with my namesake, Iris. Our Clefairies face off, and Rando gets an eruption, soundly winning that battle. Back in his home, Rando helps me imprison all of his friends, the Rock, the Bat, and the Mushroom Parasite. And that's all the Mt Moon Pokemon you can catch here. In Yellow, and in Crystal, you can get a Sandshrew, but not in Gen 3. It does seem weird to me though, that most of the Pokemon who evolve with a Moonstone can't even be found in Mt Moon. What's up with that? Speaking of, I get a Moonstone, but don't want to evolve Clefairy just yet because he needs to learn more moves first. I try to use all of my Pokemon in this cave to make sure they get experience, but Paris and Zubat, they really suck right now. So I end up relying a lot on Geodude and Clefairy. Towards the end of the cave, both of those suckers are dead, so this is going to be a lot of fun trying to train them. You know who else likes Pokemon? The creators of Boot.dev, the sponsor of this video. Learning to code, whether it be for a job or just to learn how to hack Pokemon games, is certainly a useful skill. And after trying Boot.dev for several hours, their unique approach is very intriguing. In case you didn't know, I like video games, and they have made coding into a game, where you get experience for each completed challenge, streaks give you bonus experience, and you level up. Boots, the AI bear, can help you if you get stuck in a challenge, or you can head to the Discord to talk to real people. I started with their Python course because the language I'm most familiar with, but if you want to learn Linux, JavaScript, or even how to build a Pokédex in Go, there are courses for all of that. The best part is, leveling up keeps you interested in a way other coding courses I've taken simply don't. They're also fans of the Stormlight Archive, which is certainly a plus in my book. So head on over to Boot.dev right now, where you can demo some of the features for free, and when you're ready to truly start your coding journey, use my promo code NuzlockeJoe, or scan the QR code now to get 25% off your entire first year. I teach Clefairy Mega Punch, and decide to challenge my rival in Cerulean before Misty. I start with Paris, and immediately swap to Geodude to give that bug experience. That happens a lot right now. Clefairy Mega Punches the Squirt, and Paris finally finds someone she can defeat, a helpless Abra. Rattata is stoned with some rocks, beating my rival. This opens up the Nugget Bridge, which I hope to use to get Paris to a reasonable level before fighting Misty. She still has some issues, even Bullet Seed kind of sucks, and Zubat again still isn't great, but after clearing most of the trainers north of Cerulean, Zubat learns Bite and Paris gets to level 17. 18 after defeating Misty's final gym trainer. She's still underleveled, but I might as well challenge Misty now. At the very least, Paris does resist water. She is immediately confused, but I was prepared for that. She is immediately confused again, which is mighty unfair, but still defeats the first star. Against Starmie, I sacrifice Geodude to get rid of Paris's confusion. She then Stun Spores, and then Bullet Seeds a few times for the win. Wow, good job there, Zombie. I didn't actually think you'd make it out alive. To celebrate Zombie's win, why don't you subscribe to the channel and hit the like and notification bell? I'm sure Zombie would really appreciate it. This leads us to the SSN rival battle, where Rocky takes out the bird, and Paris bullets his Wartortle, but thanks to flinches and crits, barely survives this one. This time, the rat is magnituded. Zubat tries and fails to bite. Instead, Clefairy punches, and Vital throws Kadabra for the win. Now, Lieutenant Surge is always super easy, as long as you have a ground Pokemon. Rocky makes this not even remotely a fair fight, just the way I like it. As a reward for being an absolute unit, Rocky, who has now evolved along with almost everyone else, learns Rock Slide in Rock Tunnel. He immediately uses it to squash Blue's bird, as always. Even evolved, Parasect still isn't all that strong, and Blue switches Wartortle mid-Bullet Seed anyway. That's a cheap move. Only I'm allowed to switch. When Growlithe is defeated, Parasect got enough experience to level up, and now has learned her best move, Spore, a 100% accurate sleep powder. With Wartortle now asleep, he falls without doing any more damage. Golbat again tries and fails to do something useful as he loses miserably to half a dozen eggs. Clefairy tries to show him how it's done, but almost loses here too. Kadabra is then punched, defeating Blue. Hopefully Big Mouth can redeem himself against Erica. After all, he quad resists grass. Victory Bell is quickly defeated after healing a paralysis. Tangela isn't much harder, and Vileplume does a pathetic amount of damage before also dying. Since Parasect is Grass Bug, she is weak to rock moves, so it's a bit of a risk using her here against Giovanni, but Onix's attack really sucks. And Rhyhorn doesn't do that much either. Kangaskhan is then Brick Break by Graveler, biting a couple of times first. Around this time, Big Mouth has finally stopped dying a ton, allowing Stockholm Syndrome to fully set in. Maybe I shouldn't have allowed him to evolve, since he's now a Johtomon in a Kanto world, but I needed to fly somehow. Graveler also evolves, and I decide it's been long enough, so let's get a Clefable now that he has learned Moonlight. With those mostly new Pokemon, sorry Parasect, Blue should be a piece of cake. Golem destroys his bird, but my best option against Blastoise is still Parasect, whose Giga Drain is not all that strong. And he swaps to Growlithe again. Two can play at that game. Blastoise makes a return and is eventually defeated by Parasect after countless protects. Crobat is paralyzed on the swap, confused, and is still unable to defeat those eggs. Come on, you're fully evolved now. Clefable has replaced Mega Punch with Stab Return, which is stronger and more accurate. I do wish his attack was a little bit stronger, but it's enough to one-shot Alakazam. This time, Giovanni has some poison Pokemon, allowing Golem to magnitude them. But he gets unlucky on Nidoqueen and fails to get the KO even with a magnitude 8. Crobat defeats the Queen, while Parasect takes a crap ton of damage from Rock Blast on the swap. Jeez, that was rough. Thankfully, she heals it back up, surviving a Mega Punch from Kanga. Kanga wakes up quickly, but is encored into spamming Tail Whip right into the grave. I haven't done an official gym in a while, meaning I'm out of practice. To get back into the swing of things, I take Big Mouth into the dojo formerly known as Gym and absolutely destroy everyone here. He may be weak to eggs, apparently, but defeating humanoid creatures is his specialty, it would seem. Koga seems like the easier battle right now, so I head to Fuchsia. For old time's sake, Clefable starts with Metronome, which doesn't do much, before Psychic. A crit Psychic one-shots Muck, that was nice. The second Coughing is also one-shot. Again, Clefable tries a few Metronome turns on his Wheezing, which doesn't end up doing much. But that's okay, I've still got Psychic. With Koga down, it's time for the Psychic leader. Let's see if Crobat can redeem himself. Between Shadow Ball and Wing Attack, it would appear that he can. Good job, smaller Big Mouth. I honestly did not expect him to sweep. I guess I got rid of Metronome in place of Shadow Ball for nothing because Clefable wasn't needed. Now, I may not have any water Pokemon, but Clefable can learn Water Pulse. I had hoped he could learn Surf, like Snorlax, but to no avail. That move is still strong enough to get past Growlithe, and eventually Ponyta too after some healing. Rapidash proves too strong for him, but Big Mouth can finish the job. Arcanine is confused for a safer swap, allowing Golem to come out and magnitude a few times, though Rock Slide might have been a better option. This brings us to our final gym battle. The first two Rhyhorns are Giga Drained easily enough. At this point, Golem learned Earthquake, taking out Nidoqueen. I want to give Crobat a chance to do something here, and he takes out Nidoking easily enough. And Dugtrio too after several wing attacks and heals, winning me the final gym badge. On my way to Victory Road, there is a slight speed bump who goes by the name Blue. This battle more or less happens the same as the previous ones. Golem defeats Pidgeot. Parasect tries to Giga Drain Blastoise, but gets a mouthful of Growlithe instead. Yeah. Now since it's raining, Clefable water pulses the dog, and Rhyhorn too. Execute is returned a few times, but does paralyze Clefable. Alakazam disables his return, and I bring Parasect back out to slash a few times. Finally, Blastoise is Giga Drained again, still survives, and flinches Zombie before finally dying. Geez, that's a lot of work for one water turtle. For Lorelei, Clefable now has Thunderbolt, taking out Dugong in 2 hits. Cloyster has crap special defense, so she's easy. Slowbro does not amnesia like I thought she would, giving Clefable some time to heal. I'm hoping for a full paralysis here, but it's not working. Now Lapras will clearly survive a Thunderbolt, 2 actually, as Clefable dies. At this HP, hopefully Crobat's Fly is strong enough, but it's not even close. He is confused as I swap to Parasect on a heal. Between Spore, Growth, and Giga Drain, she defeats Lapras, but not Jinx. Instead, Crobat Shadow Balls Jinx, who heals and puts him to sleep. But thankfully he survives with 2 HP. If he had died, leaving me with only Golem against Jinx, that would not have been great. Now that I have a Grass type, I don't rely on Metronome to defeat Onix, though Parasect does take some time to Growth. I had hoped that would make Hitmonchan easier to beat, but it clearly did not. Machamp is put to sleep, and then confused by Crobat. Several turns later, he somehow defeats Machamp without ever getting hit. Hitmonlee is also confused, but it doesn't stop him from critting Golem to the grave. Dang. Crobat comes back out, tries, and fails to fly. Clefable does hit a single Psychic, but Brick Break is too strong since Fairy is not yet a thing. Meaning it all comes down to Parasect. How fantastic. She survives a kick, and then I waste a turn using Spore because her ability activated. The exact same thing happens 2 turns from now, but in the end, Zombie wins with a few slashes because Hitmonlee ran out of kicking power. And thank goodness for that. Onix is so weak that even with a 120 base power attack, he barely does 30 damage. Zombie survives the hit and wins another Giga Drain. I'll admit, I didn't expect Bruno to get me so close to death there. Speaking of, my battle with Agatha begins with Crobat, Shadow Balling Gengar. Haunter survives the hit and puts him to sleep, so I swap to Clefable to Psychic. Thanks to a curse, I swap again to Golem. He has a Lumberry and Rock Slides the Lesser Bat. Arbok is Earthquaked a few times. After dealing some damage to Gengar, Clefable comes out and gets put to sleep. He does some healing and eventually wins with Psychic. That was a much easier battle. In preparation for Lance, who should be quite a bit harder, I used the 5 rare candies I've saved up during this run. Everyone gets one, except for greedy Clefable, who takes 2. In spite of those candies, we are well underleveled here. Clefable starts with Thunderbolt, taking out Gyarados. Golem is then strong enough to handle the Flying Rock, even with an Omni Boost. He then embraces death to take out a Dragonair. Crobat gives his life against the other Dragonair so that Clefable can safely defeat it. Now Dragonite is still a huge issue, but he chooses to safeguard instead of actually attacking. That foolish move causes his knockout in 2 Ice Beam. And this brings us to our very last rival battle. Though I shouldn't be surprised, Blue again swaps out his Pokemon, this time Pidgeot for Rhydon. Parasect easily takes the Earthquake, but is then too slow and almost freaking dies. This Rhydon is much stronger than Onix. Pidgeot comes back, and Golem follows to finish the job. Parasect spores Blastoise, Growths, and Giga Drains him to death because he didn't actually swap this time. In the rain, Arcanine's Flamethrower is even weaker to Golem, who responds with an Earthquake. Okay, a couple of Earthquakes then. Crobat then tries to prove to himself, and me too I guess, that he can defeat these now fully evolved eggs once and for all. but he does the exact opposite. Well, that's a bit disappointing. Parasect tries to finish off Exeggutor, but with how weak Slash is, it makes much more sense for Clefable to just Ice Beam. A Reflect saves Alakazam's life, since Return is weakened. After a lucky paralysis, I realize I don't want to lose Clefable in the very last battle. Instead, Parasect can be a sacrifice. Her death allows Golem to come out as Reflect ends, and self-destruct one more time, defeating Alakazam and my rival once and for all, officially proving that Mt Moon Pokémon are the best, or at the very least, some of them are okay. It's not until I look back at this run while editing that I realize the only times I lost were to Brock, at the very beginning. That is quite surprising. These Mt Moon Pokémon aren't too shabby, Big Mouth constantly losing to eggs notwithstanding. Misguided or not, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next region.